Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cultivating Age-Friendly Ambassadors. This is being brought to you by the Age-Friendly State Collaborative, and our goal is to help communities either improve the age-friendly work they've taken on or to help new communities initiatives get started. And one of the things that we've talked about a lot is that having the right people in your corner serving as ambassadors or liaisons is really important to the sustainability of an effort. We've all seen examples of when there's a really great idea and a great project, and when the person running it leaves, it falls apart. So our goal here is to look at some really good examples of what's been done already to help identify ambassadors in your community who can keep the project sustainable through a change in leadership, through a change in elected leaders, through a change in staff. And also how to bring the goals and the priorities of the older adults in the community to their attention. So it's not a top down with somebody thinking this is what I think needs to be done. And it really represents the goals and the priorities of people living in the community that we're working for. So we have with us today, one of our speakers I think is sick. So we're going to have Lisa Bontemps from Westwood for All Ages talk about the great program they have in place and the way they use ambassadors to build up their efforts and support them for long-term effect. So with that, I'm going to
Lisa Bontemps, and just by a little introductory background for anyone who's not familiar with Westwood for All Ages, we are a program that was funded by the Henry and Marilyn Taub Foundation through Meals on Wheels of North Jersey several years ago. As part of a larger effort to introduce our community to age-friendly practices and partner with municipal departments, other nonprofits.
Excuse me, if we're not going to have captions, could you please just be aware of not speaking too quickly? That would make a very big difference. Okay.
Certainly. Yeah.
Thank you. And typically people start slower and then they speed back up. Don't do that. So, and anybody in this session, if you are speaking, just speak not at a New Jersey pace, speak a little slower than that. Thank you. It makes a very big difference.
Thank you for that reminder. I'm actually from Arizona. I've learned in the last 26 years to speed up because everybody's in a hurry here in New Jersey. When I go back to Arizona, that's when I go into slow mode. But thank you for that. And since we don't have the other presenter here, I will do that. It will take a little bit more time. So as I was speaking about Westwood for All Ages, so our mission is to help our community to become one that is more age-friendly. We work with other nonprofits, municipal departments, faith community to help drive sustainable improvements that make it possible for people to age in place and thrive in their homes in Westwood. I was brought into the initiative in mid-2017 and was then appointed as the program manager in 2018 by Jean Martin, who's the executive director of Meals on Wheels, which again holds the grant for this program. And Jean is on the call with us today on the Zoom. So if there's questions that I can't answer about some of the early genesis, she may be able to do that. So what is an age-friendly ambassador? Let's just get to our next slide here. The term ambassador is generally meant to be someone who's a representative or promoter of a specific cause or organization. So taking that definition, we developed the ambassador program to be one in which the ambassadors would serve as advocates and supporters of our age-friendly work, helpful guides to residents about services and programs that they may not be familiar with that would help address some of the needs around issues like transportation, housing, governmental assistance, and so on. And also as educators who are able to articulate what age-friendly means from a practical standpoint. So then the next question is, why utilize ambassadors? Aren't age-friendly efforts something that can be carried out by just a few paid staff people, or say a municipal person hired to oversee senior recreation maybe, or senior services? But what I think we all know intuitively is that older residents who live in the community are the ones who can often best identify the real needs versus ones we may assume are present. So things like access to public transportation may seem like a universal problem for older adults, but and it certainly is in many communities, but we have found when we survey our older residents that most are still driving, or they have adult children who drive them where they need to go, or maybe they're more comfortable with taxi or Uber services. Again, they're the ones that know this more than we do. So we rely on our ambassadors. They're the ones that often have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in their own demographic. And they have skin in the game. So whatever things we want to do to improve our communities are going to directly impact this population. Most importantly, though, as you'll see further in this presentation, having engaged volunteers in this population helps to ensure the sustainability of our age-friendly efforts, because long after a funded initiative ends, these are the people who will still be engaged in driving change efforts at the grassroots level. So who is an ideal age-friendly ambassador? So not everybody's well suited to be an ambassador, just like in any other type of volunteer effort. It helps to have people who are going to be the best representatives for age-friendly. So here are just some qualities that I think we have found make for the best kind of ambassador. And as you can see, they're people who are already engaged, already connected, but also have a spirit for advocacy work. They don't always come to us saying, I want to be an advocate, but what happens is over time, they see that their role is integral to advocacy. And just from a practical standpoint, it takes many hands to make things happen. So we need people who are available that can help us both promote or plan or run public events. So what are some of the roles that we've used our ambassadors for here in Westwood? One of the most important roles is to have them participate as members of a steering committee. When our initiative first began, we developed a committee that had stakeholders from different parts of the borough, public, private, municipal representatives, but also residents. And these are members who were also ambassadors. So they would involve in sort of steering the ship, as it were, and helping to determine what would be the priorities for our work. They also were engaged in educating residents about the services and activities that are available in Westwood, because they participate in some of them and have utilized them and already know about them. They've been helpful with planning events, and then attending and facilitating any kinds of workshops or seminars or celebration events that we have coordinated. In some cases, they will attend governing body meetings, if not to speak, but to just observe. And several of them are on municipal committees in which they can then advocate for age-friendly policies and practices. And of course, being spokespersons for the age-friendly initiative, so that it's more than just one person touting the benefits of age-friendly. And again, to help direct others to outside resources. So many of you are probably familiar with this from AARP, the 8 domains of livability. This is a particularly helpful model for looking at the benefits of involving older residents in our age-friendly work. Most particularly these domains here of civic participation, respect and inclusion, social participation. These are all things that help ensure that older residents are integrated into all aspects of our civic life in a community. And of course, they can be powerful forces for facilitating communication and information as well through their own networks. We also know from research studies done that support that volunteerism helps to contribute to healthy aging. Volunteering among older adults has been linked to improved quality of life, stronger social networks, increased levels of physical activity, and lower mortality rates. So I just want to take a second to highlight this person that you see over on the left-hand side of my screen. This is Michelle, one of our ambassadors. And Michelle, originally when we started our program, she and her husband used to come to many of the events that we had. So we had training workshops for transportation, pedestrian safety, different health-related health-related topics. And her and her husband were very engaged in those. Unfortunately, Michelle's husband passed away in early 2020, just before the outbreak of COVID. So she was dealing with her grief and now alone. And then COVID happened and became socially isolated, even from her children who were not able to visit her face to face. Very early on in the pandemic, we decided at Westwood for All Ages that we would start teaching people how to use Zoom, just like we're doing today. And we started hosting monthly get-togethers on Zoom called Social Connection Happy Hours. And the idea was to get people on first to be connected, but also secondly, to learn a little bit about technology and be comfortable with this platform, and to help them stay engaged and aware of things that they might not know about that are going on in their town, or related to vaccination availability and food, address any food security issues so that we could help them with that. Michelle came to every single one of those that we did. She also came to Zooms that we did that were something we co-hosted with our library called Coffee and Conversation. I know a few of us in here have been participants in that. And on occasion, we would have one of our ambassadors lead a conversation in those Zooms around a podcast. And it's just it was also to introduce them to podcast technology. Well, Michelle came to every one of those as well. And then she said to me, you know, if it weren't for the things that you did to engage people on Zoom, I would have lost my mind, because she was still going through the grief of losing her husband and then was even more isolated. She said, this literally saved my life. So she wanted to step up and become a volunteer. And now she's one of our most active older residents as an ambassador, but also a member of the newest member of our Senior Citizens Advisory Committee on our municipal level. So she's just a great success story for how ambassadors can really impact not just the community, but their own lives impacted as well. So I'm going to show you a brief clip from a promotional video that we did to explain our initiative and the impact it's making in the community. And here is where we were able to tap one of our more enthusiastic ambassadors who had some performance background in her previous life, pre-retirement. So we asked her to be a part of this video, and you'll see it's really lovely.
Westwood for All Ages is a program that is elevating people's consciousness about the fact that there are many of us in my age bracket and a little bit younger who would like to stay living in Westwood. Westwood for All Ages is discovering what the obstacles may be for some people to continuing to live in Westwood, and what the possibilities are for change within Westwood that would make it more possible for us all to stay. What has helped me is there have been workshops within our town that have been orchestrated by Westwood for All Ages. They brought in someone from the Volunteer Center in Hackensack who spoke, and this is significant for me especially, who spoke about the fact that they have programs within that volunteer center that we may not be aware of that will help us with light housekeeping, with shopping for groceries, with repairs that we may need around our house.
The way we get information.
Okay, so it's a longer video. I don't want to show the whole video. I just wanted to show you that snippet. Again, the advocacy aspect of Westwood for All Ages ambassadors has also been very helpful. So the one that you just saw in that video, and then again, Michelle, who I spoke about, who was widowed, have both been engaged as members of the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. So this picture shows you from last year during Older Americans Month. our mayor signed a proclamation acknowledging the contributions of our older residents and presented it at a governing body meeting. So this shows you them. And we've always had at least one or two of our ambassadors on that committee. And that's where, again, sustainability is really key, because they're the ones that are going to be the ones sitting in those committees, advocating for changes that help us to become a more age-friendly community. This gives you an example of some of the ways our ambassadors have been incredibly helpful to our mission. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of photos here. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through and show them and explain them. So over here on my far left, you'll notice a van in the bottom left-hand corner. This is actually our senior van that we use for transportation services, all decorated up as Santa's sleigh for our annual Home for the Holidays parade, which is a big deal here in Westwood. And for several years, our ambassadors have decorated this van and marched with it. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them prefer to watch on the sidelines with their grandchildren, but nearly all of them helped us with the planning and implementation of the design. So right above that, you'll see some of our ambassadors hard at work, developing the materials and working on the decorations for the van. And you'll see at the very end of the slide a little bit of a continuation of this van where some of them were marching with us. This middle picture was taken at our town's 125th anniversary celebration. We always try to be involved in any kind of townwide events, to have a table to present information. This one also included a whiteboard that had some helpful statistics and information about aging and demographic shifts. And what it did was it allowed residents to engage in a dialogue with our ambassadors about the issues that impact their lives every day. It also gave us an opportunity to hand out resource guides, brochures from the county on aging services, any upcoming events, flyers, general information. And then on the far right, I mentioned during the pandemic, of course, we were all isolated, but when we were finally able to gather socially distanced outdoors, we held one of our social connection happy hours in a park in the center of town, where we provided them with some live music, some games, some conversation, just a lot of fun. And this gentleman over here on the right is Anthony, one of our ambassadors, who's 81 years young, a fitness professional, health and wellness professional for years. He actually teaches spin classes still at one of our local gyms. And we got him up to do some nice stretching exercises with everybody because they had been sitting for a little while. So, we try to take people where they are with their talents, their skills, what things do they have to offer, and then utilize them. And it's great for them as well as for all of us. So the question I get asked a lot is, how do I find ambassadors? How can we do this in our community? And these are just some examples of where we've had some success finding ambassadors. Many of your faith-based organizations and churches, houses of worship, honestly have mostly older residents in them. The faith community is aging, and some of them are very active in their churches and synagogues, and those are good people to tap because they already have a heart for service. So connecting with clergy as an initial first step and seeing who are the helpers, who are the people that are the ones that do want to be engaged and maybe would be interested in serving their community, is a good place to start. Many communities have a Friends of the Library program that is attached to the library. Their mission is to help fundraise for the library, do book sales and other things that help support library efforts. Most of our ambassadors early on in the initiative actually came from this source because our librarian was very actively involved in the creation and wanting to see the success of Westwood for All Ages. So she was a good helper to us in getting some of those friends involved. But you might also have recreation departments that have specific programming for older residents, whether it's fitness programming or social programming or even senior centers. And they may also be able to tap the shoulders of individuals that would be ideal candidates to be ambassadors. And then, of course, look at your existing municipal boards and committees, your planning board, your zoning board, your Department of Health. Many of those have people on them that are already in an older demographic and may be really well suited to be ambassadors because they're already embedded in doing the work of the municipality. And the old standby of social media, we have a Facebook page. We don't do Instagram, and that's just because I'm not very good with Insta, so we've never really gone there. But if you have any kind of social media presence, it's always good to put out graphics and recruit people that way. And then just word of mouth. You know, sometimes people who step forward and say, I want to be an ambassador. Oh, and my neighbor or my friend, I think, might be interested as well. So what are some of the first steps once you know that you want to have an ambassador program in place in your community? The first thing is just develop a position description. Be specific. What are the things that you would like to see ambassadors doing for your community? From that, you can then recruit people. And again, using some of those strategies that I mentioned before of where to find people. It would be good to conduct informational interviews one-on-one just so that you can really get to know them. They can get to know what you're looking for your own specific community and see if it's a good fit, and also get a sense of what their time availability would be like. What are their particular skills, talents, interests, previous work experience that could lend itself well to some of the needs you have. And then select your ambassadors. That's kind of an obvious step. It would be good to hold an initial training session, as we did, to describe the roles of the ambassador, but also to do some educational work with them so that they know about programs, services, things that are happening in the community, where to find resources so that they can be as instrumental as possible in helping other older residents tap into this information. Again, engage them in planning, engage them in everything, you know, have them at your meetings, now we did hold regular meetings initially, about monthly, I would say, early in our initiative, and really for the first couple of years. Once COVID happened, we had to ditch the regular meetings because we just could not get together. We met on Zoom though. And as we were sort of winding down some of our initiative efforts, we met less frequently. And that's where we moved less from meeting and more into implementation and getting out and doing. And then the important thing too is to celebrate and recognize people's contributions. I think of this the same way as anything else. If you have volunteers, do things to recognize them, because you realize that these are people doing things out of the goodness of their heart. They're not getting paid for it. And so we want to be able to give back in little ways. So here is a picture of us having a luncheon to celebrate the end of doing our Celebrate Westwood 125th anniversary party, where we had that table. It took a lot of work to make that a success, and all of our ambassadors were engaged and part of it in one way or another. So we thanked them by having a celebration luncheon. So just final thoughts here, that older residents of any community are the keepers of its stories, the guardians of its traditions, and the source of its wisdom. So when we include them in the fabric of our community, we honor their contributions and ensure a brighter future for generations to come. And that's really what it's all about from my perspective, is that we do not want to be doing for people as much as doing with. And for our older residents in particular, they already have so much to offer. And when I say they, I'm also in this demographic. But we need to make sure that their voices are heard and that anything that we do includes them. So I mentioned the parade that we do in Westwood, and you saw the van. So this is what was in front of the van, which was our reindeer, our age-friendly reindeer. What you may or may not be able to see is we're all wearing sashes. And on each of those sashes, instead of the names of the reindeer, you know, Dancer, Prancer, and so on, it's the 8 domains of livability. I don't know how well people were able to see that as we were marching, but boy, it sure was fun getting those letters to fit in there just right, especially the big ones like transportation. So we had a fun time with that. So here's my information. If anybody would like to reach out to me at any time, I would be more than happy to discuss this with them and help them out if they need specific ideas on how to get people engaged in their own programs. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. I'm going to take the spotlight off you for now. Tonia Moore is going to speak next, and I'm going to wait until after she speaks also to open it up for questions. I've been taking a list of questions to ask in case you don't. And Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, if you email me the slides, then I can email it out to everybody who signed up today. Okay, so now we are going to bring up Tonia Moore, who is the chair of the South Orange Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. Just have to find her on the list. Tonia, I saw you a minute ago.
I'm next to you on the on the grid.
But not on my screen. There you are. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to spotlight Tonia so we could all see her. Thank
Okay.
you. We've been having some technical challenges today, but I found you. So
Okay, good. Well, I don't know why my face is so dark, but
it's the light behind you.
It's the light
the-
behind me.
If you close the blinds. Oh, that's
Okay.
better. That's perfect.
That is better. Okay. I just didn't want you to think I was anonymous. That was so interesting, Lisa. It's such good, clear information. I really appreciate it. What I have to talk about overlaps, of course, but it's really more of a story. I'd like to tell you how South Orange started to be more age aware, and then show you the development of it. In 2013, I retired from my work as an educator and a counselor. And so I was more in the community than before. And I went to an event that was so unsenior friendly, I couldn't believe it. People couldn't, I went with a person who was older than myself, and she couldn't hear. And when that was mentioned, nobody said anything, did anything. She was given a form at the end for an evaluation, and she said, I'll bring it home. And the person who gave it to her said, do it now. And she said, well, I can't see it now in this light, you know? And so that started me thinking about the things in the community that weren't very kind to seniors, like flyers with small print and environments that were not suited to seniors. So myself and 2 other women decided to run some focus groups, which is really, you know, very, very audacious of us. But we started running some focus groups in the library, in the at one of the mansionettes in the back, at the rec center. And we asked people, we invited people we knew, and then from there we'd ask them, do you know anybody else who would like to participate in a focus group? And we got information, and we said, what do you like about, how long have you lived here? Do you live alone? It's kind of hard to get that into a safe way so people don't reveal themselves to strangers. But what do you like about living in South Orange? What don't you like about living in South Orange? Do you have suggestions about how it could be improved? So here you have people, and somebody's asking them, and they responded. So we gathered all this data. What were we going to do with this, you know? But we got to see, well over 100 people before we were finished running focus groups. So we decided to have an organization called South Orange Seniors. And we applied for nonprofit status. And we started to, what people wanted was safer walking, safer sidewalks. They wanted and safer crossing, of course. They wanted some activities. And those were two really big things. So we started running some activities. We had a gala with with Seton Hall, and Seton Hall volunteer group called Dove and SOS had this dance in the afternoon at Seton Hall. And people came and they had a really wonderful time. At the same time, we heard about the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, but it was very small and it was in the beginning stages and it didn't have a whole bunch of seniors on it. So we pushed in. We just went to a meeting and we stayed and we never went away. And from that, you know, we started doing, we had the senior forum. Once we had the senior citizens, that we were on the Senior Citizens Advisory Council, we ran the senior forum and we had little groups. People could sign up for what they wanted to hear about and talk about. And we had things about volunteer possibilities, education opportunities in the area, cultural opportunities, health and wellness opportunities. So people signed up for what they wanted. We had it at the lofts at SOPAC, and it was we had governmental people there who would love to speak whenever there's a crowd, and they were amazed at the largeness of the crowd. So seniors vote, you know, that's something they always do, and that was very, very noticeable that day. So we had the senior forum and it was a big success on the part of the Senior Citizens Advisory. And we had it another time, I guess a year or two after. Meanwhile, SOS is still running, South Orange Seniors. So we had a film, and this sort of overlaps with something that Lisa said about seniors and their stories. So we linked up with Seton Hall again, with the communications arts, and we produced, believe it or not, a movie. Actually, we produced 3 before we moved on to something else, but a movie with 5 people telling their stories. And the students went to interview people. We pre-interviewed them, and then the students went and interviewed them, and it was made into a film. It was shown at SOPAC, and it was so affirming that seniors in our community have really important stories to tell, that what they have learned and what they have experienced is really worth it. We filled the auditorium at SOPAC, people who were in the film and their families, and then people who are friends, and then, so seniors became more and more noticeable. Ambassadors are people who are involved in promoting and representing. And there they were. So that was a good move. There are so many other things that came out of SOS, but let's move over to once we had the governmental link. The most important part of the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee is having a good trustee as your liaison. And we have Karen Hilton. And she's maybe a senior, okay? She's on the edge of senior, but she likes seniors. She has 100% attendance, and she follows up. And that's what makes our committee, or one of the things that makes our committee real. Because people come to the meeting, the things they want to mention to Karen, they know she will listen, and they know that she'll take it to where it needs to go. People who know that we're on the committee will tell us, when you go to that meeting, why don't you tell them about this? There are lots of, you can't fix things, but you can really explain things to us. So when we have questions about the budget, when we have questions about these trees that were taken down in Grove Park all of a sudden. She can follow up, get the answers, and we feel as though we're more knowledgeable. Part of being on the advisory committee is learning about what's going on, really going on, instead of, you know, talking about it on the street. Go to the source and find the information so that you can give it out in the correct way. It's educating the community once you've educated yourself. The committee has, one of the things we did was the discount card, senior discount card. And that was really helpful because everybody likes to, you know, save some money. And this was to encourage people to use local businesses. So that was a win for the business owner. And then also it was a, you know, a way of satisfying our need to, you know, make a little, save a little money. So, and that worked. And we're in the process of revitalizing it. COVID took a lot of vitality out of a lot of things. And so we're going around, the businesses have changed. We're adding new businesses. And I think it'll be another good thing to go with. Another important part of our committee is the fact that while the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee was in existence, along came this opportunity to get a grant for from the Grata Foundation. And that grant would have helped towns improve for seniors. So with that grant came, we had a consultant, and we had a study, and we had a needs assessment, all professionally done. And it was decided that the money for the grant, for the most part, would go to paying for a coordinator. And the money for the grant only was supposed to be for 3 years. So the first coordinator was Kathy Rowe. And that was a really great thing that happened to us because she's very organizational. She's very instructional. And she, right away, a newsletter. So she developed our newsletter and the Soma 2 towns, Soma 2 towns, of course, the other town is Maplewood. And she put out a newsletter, and that drew people to the information about what there was that was available, and also interesting articles for seniors. Kathy went on to become, you know, she climbed the ladder of success. And we had a second coordinator, and the second coordinator was also very instructional, and she developed computer classes. And Seton Hall did computer and phone classes. She also moved the newsletter. I think both of our each coordinator had their own flavor, you know, but they were all moving us forward. So we lost our second coordinator, Tracy Carroll, and now we have Kristen Tyler, who has her own flavor. She is very, very Facebook savvy. She's very good at getting the word out, and that's really helped us a lot. Going back to our committee, so let me say that the Soma 2 towns coordinator is part of the SOSAC, South Orange Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. She's a liaison, just as the trustee is a liaison. So we're always getting information from her about what's going on at Soma 2 towns. We're getting information from Karen Hilton, our trustee, about what's going on in the town. We also, within the committee, one of our goals is to make seniors participate, and I heard this in Lisa's talk, in other aspects of the community, not just in senior aspects. So we've been moving to have seniors participating in River Day. You know, it's a day that people clean up the river. Senior citizens might not want to go splashing around in the river, though it's really not that bad. It's very satisfying. But we also have people at the sign-up tables, just to be a part of it, just to have a senior face in that activity. One of the activities of the advisory committee is the Repair Cafe. One of the members of our committee is the person who brought Repair Cafe, I guess, to New Jersey, and Lorraine Graves. And so she told us about that. We supported that. We sponsored that. And we're in probably our 6th Repair Cafe. Repair Cafe, for those who don't know it, is an environmental outreach whereby people bring things to be fixed instead of having them, become part of the landfill. And so we are there. We don't fix anything, but we're there. We're sort of, I don't know, ushering people in and out. We're promoting it, hanging flyers, putting it on Facebook. And it's a very popular activity in the community. People really feel good not having to throw that lamp away. And I don't know, I have realized that lamps have a very short life. And, and so it's very helpful. We have a lamp to bring almost every year. We have it twice a year. And it's an interesting activity, but it's not just for seniors. It's for people in the community.
Tonia?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to look at the time. We've got about 13 minutes left, so I wanted to ask you to wrap up and we can go to questions.
Okay. I just want to say this. We have liaisons on our committee that go to pedestrian safety issue meetings. We have an initiative in the town which is called Walk, Ride, Bike. We have a committee member of ours on that committee. So we get the information directly. And there's also a senior presence on that committee. I mean, walking in this community is a big senior issue, as well as an issue for a woman with a stroller, people with toddlers, everybody. So our thrust is to make sure that that seniors are there promoting things in our town that benefit all of us. We don't want to push seniors in the corner or just feed them and take care of them. We want them to be able to do what they can do. And I think that's as much as I should say.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take you off the spotlight. And we are in a meeting format, so people can ask questions. If you raise your hand, I'll call on you so we don't all jump on at once. And I want to thank you both. I've known, I've worked with Tonia, I've known Lisa and seen her work for a long time. And the two things that really stick out to me are the longevity and the progress that you've made. This started as one thing and it grew and grew. So now in either town, the age-friendly efforts aren't going to go away. They've become embedded in the community. And the other thing that I heard you both say multiple times is the information in and then the information out, and the role of ambassadors for that, for understanding what is going on in the town and being able to digest that and relay that to older adults, but also sharing that information, the concerns of the older adults back into the town. And that sounds like an important two-way effort, two-way street. That's really important to your efforts. So if anybody would like to start with the questions, just use the raise hand function. I hope that's working today. Go ahead, Miss Ruth, if you would unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and I jotted notes as the speaker spoke. And what's important that both of you are conveying, but didn't say explicitly, is that you both have a warm, kind energy. And that's an important kind of intangible element of who is right for the ambassador role. Have you ever had people who applied to be ambassador who just didn't have the temperament? And if so, how do you decline them in a kind way?
So I'll take, so that's an interesting question, because when I came into the initiative, most of the ambassadors had already been pre-selected by my predecessor, Eleanor Frankel. And then a few more came during my time. And the short answer is no. I mean, most people, if they don't have the temperament, they're hopefully self-aware enough that they would know that this isn't really the thing for them. I have had a couple of ambassadors, though, who were very picky and choosy about what they wanted to do. And I had one who said, you know, I'm just not a people person. Don't put me in the spotlight. Don't make me talk to people. I'm not going to come to the events, but I will help you in the background. I will be a worker bee. I'm good with artwork, so I will help you make your posters. And, you know, she was very helpful with the decorating of our senior van. And that's fine. You know, that was good enough. None of them were what I would call misanthropic to the point where, you know, they couldn't get along with other people. But I think that's why that informational interview that I was suggesting might be a good first step, because, you know, that gives you an opportunity to share your own passion and enthusiasm. And as a result, you'll know once you're having that conversation with them, if this is something that's going to be, you know, a good match. So I do appreciate that you said that, you know, we are, you know, we have our own personalities that we come at it. And I'm very passionate about community service in general, but specifically with older adults. So that does hopefully come through when we're talking to potential ambassadors. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lisa. I would say, I mean, without giving out names and addresses, there are some people that are grouchy, you know, and we all have come across them, but that doesn't mean they don't have a lot to offer, you know, and that it can't be worked around. And I'm thinking anything you've done in your life, you've come across people that were not completely in sync with you, and you just sort of, I guess you let it rest a little and you work around it. You make them feel important, and then they become important, you know?
Yeah. And I can remember some people on who would join committees back in the South Orange and Maple ones. They had one issue, and when they realized that it wasn't just a complaint department, they, you know, removed themselves from it. So there are people that are very passionate about one issue, and they can make that bigger and serve as a role. But you know, there are people who want to complain, and that's not, you know, that might not be the focus of your efforts yet. Lisa's nodding at that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Arlene Romoff, you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Well, you already know that my issues always have to entail hearing loss. And so to be very brief about this, the percentage of people with hearing loss at age 60 and above, 25%, and 50% of people age 75 and above have hearing loss. So if you're not addressing the needs of people with hearing loss, those people are sitting at home and not participating. And the ones you are seeing are the ones that have good hearing. Well, we can't let that stand, can we?
No.
Okay, I don't want to do a whole presentation here. However, what is of the moment is the New Jersey state budget is being negotiated right now. And the Department of Human Services had included a line item to fund communication access, which included induction looping, which would make people with hearing loss and hearing aids turn their T-calls on and hear, and also captioning. That line item was eliminated in the governor's budget. Okay, so we are trying to get attention to the budget committees and also your legislators to restore that line item. And I already formatted it. I'm gonna click, I just put it in the chat, that to contact the your legislators and also the budget committees, and the email addresses are there. And just exactly this: restore the funding for Department of Human Services in fiscal year 24 for communication access, and that would include induction looping and captioning. And what will happen is this past year, 2022, there were allocations made to counties to provide communication access. So there were 12 counties that embarked on looping projects. So those rooms are, you walk in, turn on your T-call, you can participate like everybody else. There's much more and strategies on how to engage people, especially with Zoom and whatever. Captioning is one, but I just wanted to be brief. And I can put my email address in the chat as well, so you could follow up. But if you do nothing else, please just send those emails. Let's get that on the radar. They're asking for about $1 million, which would be spread among the counties, but it would put the needs of people with hearing loss on the radar. And the proportion are mostly people who are seniors. And that would make these aging ambassador programs address the people with hearing loss, which is so prevalent in your communities.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear. I was very excited when I saw that was in the budget. I'm really disappointed it was taken out, but there's still, there is still the opportunity to try to get that reinstated.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
And I'm glad I'm glad you mentioned it too, Arlene, because one of the things that we actually did advocate for at our municipal level was the hearing loops at our at all of our boards meetings, committee and board meetings, and they have not acted on that. So one thing I didn't say is we can be advocates and we can go and make our voices heard, but we also need to vote in people who will listen to those things. And sometimes the will is there and sometimes it's not. I have only probably 1 or 2 council members that are sensitive to that issue enough that they would want to fund it, but I need more than just 2 people to vote for something like that. I need, with a board of 9 people.
Well, the irony is that the people with hearing loss have dropped out because they can't participate, and they don't know how. They don't even know about loops. They don't know how to come back.
You would think so, but our president of our senior advisory committee suffers from significant hearing loss, and she struggles even with her hearing aids sometimes to hear things. So I think having, now had this conversation, I might spark a little fire under her to get back on the track of doing more of the advocation.
I'd be happy to speak with anybody, because I will tell you that people with hearing loss don't talk to normal hearing people the same way they talk to me. Really, I've had people pull me over away from their families. What can I do? It's touching. So I'm here for you guys, really. Just
Thank you.
Happy to communicate.
Arlene, will you put your email in the chat so people can get you directly?
Sure.
And then I see Jackie Cates. Jackie, you have your hand up.
Yes, I wasn't sure if I was going to attend this program today because I'm part of a long established, one of the original initiatives in TNEC. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am because I have learned so much. And there's just such practical advice to put into use. And even though we've been in existence since 2016, 15, that we are, and I think that the Age-Friendly TNEC has achieved a great deal, and I'm very proud of my colleagues who are involved. But as time goes on, we have and after COVID and having fewer meetings, we have to revitalize our involvement with people, residents, and not just staff. And we're actually meeting later on today to finalize some plans for how we're going forward. So I'm very pleased to be able to relay to my colleagues who I don't think are here what I've learned today. And I also am just delighted, because I always am when I see Arlene on the screen, because we serve on a leadership team together, and I have learned so much from her. And we had a little email session, guess it was yesterday, maybe the day before. And some of the people that I wanted to reach out to are actually on this Zoom session, Arlene, people that are involved with the governor's Age-Friendly Advisory Board, because obviously there are people with disabilities who age, and there are also aging people who may develop disabilities as they get older. And so there really is such a connection between people with disabilities and aging, and certainly hearing loss is one of the most obvious ones. So I hope that our members, I know that it's way past the time to have given input to that Aging Advisory Board, but I hope that they will be able to provide some additional input to the department and the governor, and the legislature, because what Arlene says is just so important. So I want to thank everybody, but Arlene, I don't think I've ever asked you this question, and I need your help. And of course, it's going to differ in every community, but can you help us to learn how we seek out people with hearing loss, to be able to invite them to serve on our initiatives, or to encourage them to get more involved with I know we're working on a toolkit for municipalities through our other position, but I want to be very active in TNAC right now to find people. And I only know of one person with hearing loss, and his experience on the planning board after serving for years and serving previously on the Board of Adjustment was he left because people were impatient with him. And when he wrote to the town council complaining about how the chair treated him, they didn't reappoint him. He was too much of a problem for them. I want to try to involve other people, and maybe him, but I really don't know where to begin.
Oh, yeah.
You're muted, Arlene. You're muted.
Okay. Thank you. Hold your meetings on Zoom, okay? Or whatever platform, for people most familiar with Zoom. Tell them that the meeting will be captioned. They won't have to worry about hearing everything. If they, maybe some hearing aids can link by Bluetooth to their computers, or they may want to wear headphones. But essentially, by meeting on Zoom, you don't even need it's like having an induction loop in the room. And it's like hiring a captioner for the meeting, captioner for the meeting. So the preference is to meet virtually. And that's number one. And you may point it out to them. They may not understand, because they just know that when they get in meetings, they're overwhelmed because people are speaking and they can't follow. But Zooms are like having your accessibility right there. So that's what I suggest. And of course, there's more, but that's in the 1 minute I would give you.
So that's a good point. I know that many are still hesitant to use Zoom because we've been doing it for so long that they want to be live again, but you can do both. So we could recommend to our municipalities to have their live meetings, but have at least one computer there Zooming it. And
Well, then everybody has to be microphoned.
Well, yes, but they can also, well, there's a technical issue. They're all microphoned anyways at our board meetings. So that microphone, then that system needs to be tied into somebody's computer so that it's getting brought.
That's great.
That's a technical issue that can be done.
Totally.
I love this discussion, and actually you are making me think, Arlene, I'm going to reach out. We do Aging Insights, and I think this might be a great topic for us to explore more, the modern technology for a hearing assistant. So I'm going to reach out to you, but I do have to close this out here. I will send everybody Lisa's slides and the link to the recording of this. I hope that you'll share it with colleagues and other people who might be interested. and we will see you again. We are starting to plan an event in September for the senior tax freeze from the same, our local accelerator group is what we call ourselves, on the senior tax freeze, which is increasing the eligibility substantially this year if everything is passed on the budget. And it really makes a difference in whether people can afford to stay in their homes or not. I also want to invite you all to come to the New Jersey Advocates for Aging Well Conference on June 9th. The information can be found on our website, njaaw.org, under events. And we have a great set of speakers, and we're also now going to have a pre-conference that's going to be held virtually on June 8th. And one of the topics there is technology for older adults, which will include hearing. So we are including that in our conference this year. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you to Lisa and Tonia for sharing your expertise and your experience. And I hope this is something that can help everybody move and build their age-friendly efforts. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi,
Bye.
Tonia. We need